Hi, I'm Elijah Photos from Lighthouse Charter News, and today I'm going to be interviewing Derby Photos on how she uses math in her world. First of all, what is your job?
I am a knitwear designer. I design knitting patterns for people who like to hand knit their own sweaters.
Fascinating. How do you use math in that job?
I use math to determine what size the sweater should be, how much knitting I have to do to make it that size, and how I can make that sweater different sizes to fit all different types of bodies.
Can you give us an example of an equation that you do?
Absolutely. Here's an equation right here. Let's pretend that we're working with somebody who needs a 36-inch sweater around the bust, 12 inches around the arms, and so I would add 36 inches plus 24 inches to get the total amount of fabric I would need to fit around their body. Then I would find out how many stitches fit in 1 inch of that fabric and multiply by that number, in this case 6, to come up with the total amount of stitches I need for the sweater. And then I would divide by the number of stitches in the repeating pattern I'm using, a pattern such as this. In this case, we had 24 stitches in our repeating pattern, so I found out that I would need 15 repetitions of the pattern to make a sweater fit someone my size.
Okay.
Then, as I was figuring out how to make the sweater all different sizes, I can add or subtract repetitions of the pattern to make the sweater bigger or smaller.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Elijah Photos from Lighthouse Charter News, and today I'll be interviewing John Photos on how he uses math in his world. First of all, John, what is your job?
I'm a certified registered nurse anesthetist.
What do you do as a nurse anesthetist?
I work in an operating room, so when people are having surgery, I am with them the whole time, making sure they're safe and comfortable.
How do you use math as a nurse anesthetist?
I use a lot of different kinds of math in my job. I do everything from calculating drug dosages to determining safe ventilator settings, and I also use geometry in order to intubate my patients.
How do you calculate drug doses?
All of the drugs we give are weight-based, so I need to know every patient's weight that I take care of in kilograms. How much do you weigh in kilograms?
I have no idea.
I would guess you're about 30 kilograms. So if I was going to give you medications to make you fall asleep, I would probably give you a medication called propofol, and the dosage for propofol is 2 to 3 milligrams per kilogram. So if you are 30 kilograms, and I multiply that by 2 to 3, I would give you anywhere from 60 to 90 milligrams of propofol. And then I would see and watch if you fall asleep.
How do you intubate your patients?
I use what's called a laryngoscope. It's this device, and I insert it. I stand above my patients, the head of the bed, and I insert it in their mouth and under their tongue, and I lift up their jaw, trying to align the oral, pharyngeal, and laryngeal axes so that I can see their vocal cords clearly. And then I take a plastic tube and I put it down in their mouth and into their vocal cords.
How do you use ventilators as a nurse anesthetist?
Once a patient is asleep and intubated, they're usually not breathing on their own anymore. So I hook them up to a machine called a ventilator, and I can adjust the settings on that to keep them inspiring and expiring enough oxygen so that they'll stay alive. I set the respiratory rate, and I set the volume of each breath, and then I monitor them.
That was fascinating. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elijah Photos from Lighthouse Charter News, and today I'll be interviewing my uncle, Peter Valley, about how he uses math in his life. First of all, Peter, how do you use math in your boat building?
Well, in order to build a boat, at least the boats we built, you had to be able to draw the boats out full scale. So you needed to put pieces of plywood onto the floor and draw them to the same size as the boat you were going to build. So for instance, let's say you knew the porthole in the cabin was going to be 8 inches wide. You need to know what the radius of that circle is, or half of the diameter. So if your portal is 8 inches in diameter, then you would have that, or go 1/2 of 8 to get 4 inches. Once you have the 4-inch radius, then you can take your compass and draw it where it needs to be on your drawing. And you do that for everything that you build in boat building.
Can you give us an example of an equation you might use?
So if D, diameter, equals 2r, r being radius, so diameter equals twice the radius.
So you build furniture, right? What do you build?
I do. I build cabinets.
Oh, that's very cool. How do you use math with that?
Okay, so again, and this is going to be a little more complicated, in building cabinets, the first thing I do, like with building boats, is I draw them out. I don't necessarily draw them out to the same size as the ones I'm building, but I draw them out. And I do that in part to determine how much wood I'm going to need. So if I know, once I've drawn my cabinet, that I'm going to need 8 feet or 96 inches of cherry wood that is going to have to be 6 inches wide, then I can determine how many board feet of lumber I'm going to need. So that when I go to the lumber yard and the guy asks me how many board feet of cherry I need, I'm not going to scratch my head and go, I have no idea what he's talking about. I'm going to know that I determine board feet by multiplying the width in inches of the boards I need times the length of the boards I need times 1, which is 1 inch, to get the number of board inches. Then if I divide that by board feet, or 12 by 12, I'm going to determine how many board feet I need. So for instance, if you have a cabinet and you know you need 8 feet of cherry or 96 inches of cherry, 96 is the length times 6 inches, which is the width, equals, I believe, that's 576 inches. Multiply that times 1 inch and it's still 576. That gives you the total number of square inches. But the guy is going to want to know how many square feet. So you divide 576 by 144 inches and you get 4 board feet. Now I know to tell the guy, in order to build my cabinet, I need 4 board feet of 6-inch wide cherry.
That was fascinating. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.